Welcome to Mainland, your local regional television station. I'm Graham O'Brien, and some of the stories coming up in today's news. New rules could see boards and principals liable. What raw milk regulations mean for providers. Kaitiritiri hosts World's God Zone Action Race, and more. Kaitiritiri has been busy gearing up for an influx of sportsmen and women as national and international teams arrive in the region for the 7-day-long world's biggest adventure race, God Zone Chapter 5. And it will begin at a yet-to-be-announced location in the region on Saturday. Race director Warren Bates has said that the nature of the Tasman region has offered many incredible locations for the adventure race, making this like no other God Zone they've ever had before. Chrissy Small spoke to God Zone media manager Margot Berryman to find out more about this exciting adventure race event.
Right, Margot Berryman, look, this is an exciting race for the region to be taking on. Is this the first time God Zone has been in the area?
Yes, it is. This is the first time that we've been to the beautiful Nelson, Tasman region, and it's really exciting, particularly for all the international teams that are flying into New Zealand getting ready to race this weekend.
How many people are you expecting to compete?
So we've got two categories this year. The pure category, which is the full-length event, and we have 61 four-person teams in that, and they have 7 days to race the course, kicking off this Saturday. Then we've got a brand new category this year called Pursuit, and those teams will be racing a slightly shorter course. And the difference for those guys is that they have support teams with them. So whenever they get to a transition, they'll have a team of followers cooking them up some hot food. And we've got 10 teams of 4 in that category.
Goodness, so it's going to be fairly full on. What's the weather looking like for the event?
That is a really good question. Trying hard to not look at the long range forecast at the moment. It's looking a little bit rainy maybe for Friday and Saturday, and possibly coming in towards the end of next week. But to be honest, this is not an event that is really affected by weather. It runs regardless of what the weather is doing, unless it's an absolute total major weather event, and then that would maybe just cause us to create some slight course changes. But generally we go ahead, rain, hail or shine.
Right. Now we're looking at areas around Kaitiritiri. Obviously there'll be some action, I would imagine, off the beach there as well.
Well, Kaitiritiri is the host location this year, which means that all the teams will arrive in Kaitiritiri over the next 24 hours for race registration and briefings and the welcome on Friday at the Shoreline restaurant here in Kaitiritiri. The teams won't actually find out about the course until Saturday morning, so at this stage they don't know where the race start line will be.
Right, okay, so it's all going to be, everyone's in the same boat, so to speak, for the start date or start place. Right, okay, so it's a 7-day event, and that will just continue from that outer greater area of Kaitiritiri. There's some really difficult terrain there, especially up there in the back hills. Do you think there'll be some adventure sports going on up there?
Absolutely. It's such an amazing area, Nelson Tasman. And when we first looked at it to bring the race here and started looking at the national parks, you've got 3 national parks, Abel Tasman, Kahurangi and the Richmond Ranges, all in that area. There's just a plethora of opportunities to take adventure racing teams. Because these guys, as you said, they're out for 7 days. God Zone is the world's largest and most technically challenging adventure race, and it's known as an expedition event, which means that the teams continually travel day and night, 24/7, changing from one discipline to the other. So they typically will expect on the course to be mountain biking, mountain trekking, mountain running. There might be some ropes that they will do, some rope sections. There might be some mountain climbing, white water, canoeing, kayaking, mountain biking. So, you know, this region just offers such an incredible diverse terrain to put the teams through some of those disciplines. And yeah, as we said, they have 7 days to complete the course. Once they get handed their mats on Saturday morning, they have to make their way around the course that we've set, going from checkpoint to checkpoint. And they have the choice of deciding how they will get to that checkpoint. So, navigation is a really big part of this event, and it means teams will be all over the region doing these things.
Right. Okay, so what about spectators? Will there be an opportunity for people to spectate some of these events?
Yeah, absolutely. We have an amazing live website, which is godsonadventure.com. That goes live at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning, and that will have the entire course details on there. So spectators can check on the website, see where the teams are going to be going through, and turn up at specific points, transition areas along the way, to urge the teams on and encourage them and see all the action.
Great. Well, look, it sounds like it's going to be an extremely great 7 days for the region, just having such an adventure race going on here. And how inspiring for local sports people as well, and maybe something for them to look at in future.
Yeah, we've got some great representation actually out of the Nelson region. Team Motueka is probably one to watch. They're a local team, and we know they're champing at the bit to get out onto the course. We've been really welcomed by Tourism Nelson and by the Kaitiritiri Beach Trust, and it's just been fantastic to be finally here on the ground and about to push the start button for Godzone Chapter 5 2016.
Wow. Look, I'm going to try and get down there too. So, well, best of luck.
Thanks so much, Chrissy.
Under the new Health and Safety at Work Act that will come into law on April the 4th, principals will now have to shoulder more responsibility when accidents happen. Principals and school boards can face fines of up to $600,000 or 5 years in jail in the worst case scenarios for injury or death of a student in their care. However, some may believe that this could lead to schools wrapping children in cotton wool because of a fear of being prosecuted. Chrissy Small spoke to Hampton Street School Principal Don McLean about what these changes could mean for schools.
Now, Don, thanks for taking the time out to talk with us today, but can you tell us what these new health and safety rules will now mean for schools like yours?
I mean, it's a little bit grey in terms of where this is going to take us, because it's new, and the mood from the ministry is that no, don't panic and don't worry, it's all going to be fine. But yeah, from our point of view, it basically means just being careful. Just ensuring that we look after ourselves. That staff understand the importance of health and safety, and they're taking it very seriously. Not that they hadn't in the past, but certainly the new regulations have made us, much more heightened around, what our responsibilities are, and where the buck stops, really.
Right.
I think that sort of clarifies that in no uncertain terms.
But there was always that there in certain aspects of the regulations.
That's totally right, Chrissy. There's always been health and safety. Has always been an important part of any school trips or camps, things like that. We always did our RAMS reports and safety action plans and all those sort of things. The thing that we really want to do is we want to make sure that staff realise, the importance of those action plans. We want to assure parents that those things are in place, and that we, I'm not a big fan of saying we're going to stop taking kids on camps or on outdoor trips, but I do think we are, as a school, going to be looking really closely at those policies and procedures we have in the school, making sure they're airtight, and that the staff and anyone involved in camps and things are following those to the letter. And that will be the big thing that comes out of it. We did do it before, but this now it's certainly much more heightened.
Sure. Now, Don, look, we had a terrible tragedy a few years ago with Motueka High School. They had some trees felled, and a child playing in the school ground out of school hours was crushed. and those sorts of incidents. I mean, can they really be the responsibility of the board and the principal? Does that really have to go back to that, or does that go back to the contractor?
That was a tragedy, but yeah, unfortunately, absolutely, I do think they do have to be the responsibility of schools and principals and things like that. I think we need to, all take responsibility for our tamariki, and when parents are given us the responsibility to look after their kids, we need to be make sure that we are, safe in our practices.
Right, now we're talking about a situation, though this child wasn't even at that school, he was too young, but this is out of school hours. If a child breaks into a swimming pool, a school pool, out of hours and isn't from that school and is drowned, again, is that your responsibility?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because we've had that discussion. We've got a good pool here at Hammond Street, and if someone breaks the law and climbs into your pool, and you've done all the measures taken to try and prevent people getting in, but they still get in, and people do that, and then they get stuck under the cover and drown or something like that, it's actually their responsibility. So that if they're breaking the law, unless it's proven that, okay, no, we left the gate unlocked, or actually you left a ladder against the fence or something like that, that's different from someone who actually intentionally breaks the law by breaking into your facility and then has a terrible accident while they're there. So you need to make sure, obviously, you don't have the gates open and the ladder's leaning against the wall. But if people choose to do that, then they're taking that's their own responsibility.
Now, some schools hire out keys to their pools as a way to make a little bit of extra money for maintaining their pools. What if someone who hires a key doesn't lock the gate? Does that go back to
school? It's a really good question, Chrissy. That's something I think, we don't do that at Hammond Street, thankfully.
Yeah.
But that's going to be...
I think schools will be looking at that.
That's a can of worms, in my view, because it's a really good point. What happens? And no matter what you do in your school, how do you ensure that doesn't, that something doesn't go wrong? You're actually allowing the person in, you're actually taking the responsibility of them being in the pool, even though you're not there. You can make them sign a waiver, which is what they generally do when you do a key. They have a thing to say that, you're taking all responsibility, but, you just don't know what people do when they get into those facilities, and where that responsibility lies. It's an interesting one, all right.
So basically it's business as usual, but you'll be really crossing those T's and dotting those I's all the way through.
Absolutely, and we've made that really clear to the staff that that's the way it's going to be too. So,
right.
It's exactly it. It's business as usual, and we don't want to compromise the quality of our program, or the what we're able to offer children simply because of the rules, but.
We all know kids
have to be extra careful.
Yes, and we all know that kids need some risks to learn from, don't they, in life?
Absolutely, that's exactly right. They need to be able to, take some risks in life, because later on in life they need to know how to manage risk.
That's right.
So exactly, it's really, really important that parents still, and teachers in schools, still allow children to take some managed risks while they're young, so that when they get older they understand that the risks do need to be managed, and that they don't do silly things themselves with no awareness of what a risk's about.
Well, we're very fortunate here that we have such beautiful areas to take the children. There's the Abel Tasman National Park, we've got the lakes, we've got the mountains, we've got so much, but again, under that health and safety, do you think that will actually hold schools back now?
I think some schools are going to be cautious, put it that way. I think that I wouldn't be surprised. At the end of the day, in the worst case scenario, the principal could be fined up to $660,000 or something, and basically that's your house down the tubes. That's personally, and they can go to jail for up to 5 years. But that is the worst situation of incompetence. That something like that would happen. But there's obviously going to be in between that and nothing, there's going to be a scale of
culpability.
Competency. So we're just going to have to, and that will wear on principals. That.
Well, I think you'll be wanting a pay rise, won't you?
Yeah.
All the added stress and strain.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. I'm always keen on a pay rise.
Right. Well, we'll get the petition happening then.
Yeah.
Hey, Don, look, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us about some of the concerns that are out there regarding this law change. It's quite worrying, but we're sure that we have such good principles in this area that you guys will rise above.
Thanks, Chrissy. Good on you.
Thanks.
Most schools have a form of public liability insurance which covers them in the event of people injuring themselves. However, it seems there is no form of insurance that would cover the penalties under the new Act. The Department of Conservation is looking at ways to improve access to its longer tracks and trails for people with mobility issues. It has just completed a 3-day wheelchair access trial on the Able Tasman Coast Track with the assistance of the Halberg Disability Sports Foundation and Merle Bradley, a wheelchair user who enjoys outdoor adventures with the support of her friends and family. As part of the department's involvement in the Healthy Nature, Healthy People program, they want to see more people participating in outdoor activities on public conservation land. About a quarter of New Zealand's population, 1.1 million people, live with a disability. DOC is interested in finding out what sort of information and support people with mobility issues need when they are planning to challenge themselves on longer trails. Another outcome of the trial will be information about how DOC facilities cope with the needs of people with mobility issues. Raw milk has been classified as a high-risk food by the Ministry for Primary Industries, and this month MPI has introduced strict hygiene and testing standards, which now means raw milk providers are having to make big changes in some cases with health and safety requirements that will affect supply for some. Chrissy Small spoke to Karen Trafford of Wongapeka Cheese at their shop in Richmond to find out what effects these changes now have on her family business.
Karen, as of the 1st of March, new rules around raw milk came into effect. How has this affected businesses like yours?
Me personally, raw milk isn't a big part of our business, but the new laws and regulations for me personally aren't a big impact, as in because we are pasture to plate and we produce our own milk to make our product. A lot of those measures are in place. The new regulations require a template or a registration, and you do have rules and testings to apply to register. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time for people to understand these regulations and to apply them to their businesses. Some people that don't have the fortunate RMPs, it will be a little bit troublesome, I think, to them. I think it's a matter of discussing, having maybe clear discussions with MPI and about these regulations. And basically I think it's going to be a 2-year period where they all get ironed out. The smallest supplier like ourselves and those farms that want to supply raw milk, there's a lot of farms or people who are currently Fonterra suppliers that do have a raw milk business, and I think how that's going to divide is that it can't be under a generic RMP. So those people that are supplying Fonterra, that are supplying raw milk, will have to have a separate management control program to provide milk as in raw to customers. I think some of the issues that are facing some of these suppliers is basically previous to that they could drop off at a collective. I think those are one of the issues. Now one of the new regulations are that they will have to drop off at each person's house. The other thing is there's quite extensive testing on the raw milk, but understandably with any raw product in New Zealand there has to be a starting point and there has to be safety in that product, and I think that those things are going to be put in place for those particular reasons. It's a little bit hard when you're little to be able to wear those sorts of compliances, and I think these are the issues that will have to be addressed over the next 2 years, is the correct balance. And hopefully these will be addressed. I think today in New Zealand, when you're going into a dairy industry, it's geared up through MPI to be quite a large scale compliance. When you're little, that is the biggest thing. Those large scale compliances still apply, and maybe in the future they can be addressed to be more in proportion.
Do you think that there's a lot of support for small businesses like yours?
There isn't a lot of support. I think that there needs to be a lot more support, as in people having an understanding of the regulations or compliances, somebody that they can talk to and be able to plan their future business around those compliances. For a lay person getting into the industry, it's mind-boggling, and
it's not as simple as just milking a cow into a bucket, is it?
No, it's not. And it would be nice to see some sort of education program in New Zealand. We are a dairy country, and I really feel strongly the fact that there needs to be some sort of courses or education out there for people that are wanting to get into local community businesses in a commodity that we're so strong in New Zealand.
Now you provide the beautiful cheeses here, and of course your lovely yogurts and milk. Now you have customers who buy large quantities of this, mainly for cheese.
Yeah, we have a lot of home cheese makers, and yeah, it's something that's becoming very popular, and it's something I like to see be extended into the future. Perhaps with a course, or we will be opening up lessons ourselves. But yeah, basically, it's with the regulations. Yeah, it's to be made and consumed in their own home, and not added on. And I think that's fair enough. We have a nice system going where we do a food grade bucket swap. It comes home and gets sterilised.
So it's really those people that will be affected by the changes. In fact, it's probably a plus for them because they don't have to come here and pick it up. You'll be delivering.
Yep. And I think, that's probably a thing that they've put in place where, if you are getting up to larger quantities and you do have a drop-off point, is that some of those people must realise that that milk has to be kept cold, and whether there's a chiller on site to keep that milk chilled, or so you can see why they're sort of bringing in this. Yeah,
because we know that the milk loves, or bacteria loves milk.
Absolutely. And I mean, one of the main things to keep those risks down is keeping it chilled. I mean, and those are simple things that can be addressed if you're dropping it off at homes, as if they are working or they're not home, as they leave chili bins out and slicker pads. And I think the responsibility will be on the supplier to maintain or educate those people receiving that milk about the risks associated if it's not handled appropriately.
Chrissy spoke to one other raw milk provider, Florian of Riverside Community in the Mootri, about what this now means for their business.
Florian, what are the regulations going to do to your business here at the Riverside Community?
Well, we had a lovely lady coming out from MPI, and we discussed the new regulations. And for this situation here from the farm gate, the changes that are happening is that it's mainly about information on the container about the possible risks that the ministry perceives they are in raw milk, and that people need to leave their contact details. They say kind of they have to, but it's a bit difficult to enforce that anyone who comes to buy milk here leaves their contact details. So we will provide a list here where people can leave their contact details, and the reason for that is that we can contact them, the customers, in case there's something wrong with the milk, so they can throw it out, which is it's very unlikely. We're sold over 120,000 litres, and we haven't had any complaints from anyone about any health issues.
What about testing the milk from the cows? Is that going to be a bit more substantial now?
There will be more testing. It will basically be the same testing that we already are doing, but more frequently. So we do the normal daily somatic cell count test, and then we do a weekly test through Cawthron and every 2-month test for the big ones like Salmonella, Campylobacter, and the third one, which I can't remember. Well, no, this is the weekly one. So the E. coli and the coliforms is a weekly one. So yes, so it's mainly the bacteria ones which will have to be done every 15 days.
Right. Okay. But look, tell me, your milk, is it organic?
We call it biologic. It's not organic in the sense that we only use organic products. The pastures that the animals are grazing on don't get any artificial fertilizer on them, and the cows don't get treated with antibiotics. We use homeopathics, and only in the worst cases antibiotics, and then they'll be taken out of that herd. So we've got a split herd because we still supply Fonterra for the bulk of our milk. And our small herd, which is for this milk machine, they are on the pasture, which it's almost 3 years now that the pastures haven't got any artificial fertilizer.
Right. Okay, so basically it's business as usual. There's not going to be much change for you guys with these new rules, other than maybe a little bit more, instructions about what people can and can't do with milk.
Yes, business as usual in a sense that you can still come here. There's a little bit more paperwork to be done. It will be a bit higher costs for us because those bacteria tests, cost a bit, and now that's sort of on a fortnightly basis rather than at every second month. So we have to see how that will affect us. And the other benefit for a customer is that now they can get as much milk as they like when they come. Before it was a 5-liter rule, so that has been lifted. But otherwise, it's all honky-dory as it was.
What's the lifespan of the milk here?
Yeah, if it's in the fridge, and the fridge is at the required temperature 3-4 degrees, it will last for a week.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so great quantities. Is it full cream milk?
Absolutely, it's nothing changed. It's just milked, chilled, and then you fill it in your bottle.
Right, so not pasteurised or homogenised or anything like that. It's naturalised.
As it's meant to be. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, look, thank you very much. And we're glad that the machines aren't being pulled out and scrapped.
Yes, we're happy about that too. It's a great thing. I mean, it's all about the direct connection between the customer and the producer, and it works out both ways. We get a fair price for our milk, and the customers get a fair price for their milk. Because, I mean, let's be honest, some of the prices in the supermarkets are ridiculous.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.
We're the team at JCar, right here in Nelson, 120 Hardy Street. Our shop is full of electronic items,
including security alarm systems, electronic components,
solar and power,
electronics, toys,
sound systems, cables, and much, much more. JCar.
120 Hardy Street, Nelson.
Nelson Tire Center. Great prices, great service. Buy your own Bryford trailer. All types, all sizes. See Colin Douglas for your tires and batteries.
Sport Tasman's Muddy Buddy Adventure Run is on again at Tasman School on Sunday, April the 3rd, rain or shine. Enter online and go in the draw to win one of 2 Avanti mountain bikes up for grabs, and there are also spot prizes available. Bring your friends and be prepared to get muddy. On behalf of the team here at Mainland Television News, thank you for joining us, and we'll bring you the latest news and events from around the region again tomorrow.
supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.